the secret code behind Tetris. You've been staring at the falling blocks for 40 years, and you never stop to ask why the system wants you to organize its chaos. You know the surface-level story, a simple puzzle game involving 7 geometric shapes, a catchy Russian folk tune, and an addictive loop that defined the original Nintendo Game Boy. It is marketed as the ultimate pick-up and play experience. But when you apply a forensic lens to the original 1984 code and the environment in which it was birthed, the game stops being a toy and starts looking like a psychological blueprint. Tetris is not a game about winning. It is a high-fidelity simulation of bureaucratic inevitability. It is an architectural record of a society that had replaced individual achievement with collective sorting. In the same way that we might analyze a city's layout to understand its power structure, we must look at the grid of Tetris to understand the digital conditioning of the modern mind. This is the Soviet protocol, a game where the only reward for success is for work moving faster until the system inevitably crashes. Welcome to Moscow, 1984, a world where the war was not fought with missiles, but with the hijacking of the human visual cortex. To understand the true nature of this world, we have to look at a single, unpatched anomaly, the Electronica 60. This was the computer on which Tetris was born. It was not located in a Silicon Valley garage or a Japanese corporate office. It was located inside the Soviet Academy of Sciences. The creator, Alexei Pajitnov, was not a game designer. He was a researcher specializing in artificial intelligence and automatic speech recognition. His job was to test the limits of computer hardware and human cognitive processing. Tetris was his test case. In the world of investigative research, this is what we call a cognitive leak. Pajitnov took a traditional puzzle called Pentaminos, which used 5 squares, and simplified it to 4. Why? Because 4 squares allowed for a faster, more aggressive sorting loop. By removing the complexity of the 5th square, he created a game that could outrun human thought. He did not set out to make a game. He set out to find the frequency of compulsion. He discovered that the human brain is biologically incapable of leaving a gap in a pattern. This is the Sidecat LLC of the Tetris world, the fundamental psychological exploit that turned a laboratory experiment into a global infection. Let's perform a systemic audit of the game's core architecture. Most Western games in the 1980s were built on the hero's journey model. You save the princess, you reach the end of the level, you win. But Tetris offers no such resolution. It is a nihilistic loop. Every line you clear is instantly erased. Every success is rewarded with a higher speed, a more frantic demand on your nervous system. In the Soviet Academy of Sciences, this mirrored the reality of the bureaucratic 5-year plan. No matter how many quotas you met, the next year simply demanded more. The grid is the office. The blocks are the endless, falling tasks of a state-run machine. When you clear a line, the work doesn't disappear, it just makes room for more falling weight. This is the architecture of the treadmill. The game encodes a specific, cynical lesson. Success is not a destination. Success is merely the ability to delay your inevitable failure. Tetris is the first game in history to replace victory with maintenance. It is a simulation of a life where you are never done, you are only currently operational. Now look at the psychological breach known as the Tetris effect. This is perhaps the most documented leak in the game's history. Shortly after the game's release, researchers began to notice a recurring pattern in players. Even when the game was turned off, people began to see falling blocks in their real-life vision. They would look at a grocery store shelf and begin mentally sorting the boxes. They would look at city skylines and try to fit the buildings together to clear a line. In technical terms, this is a visual cortex hijack. Tetris is the first piece of software to successfully remap the human brain's spatial reasoning. It forces the mind to prioritize sorting above all other functions. In the lore of the machine, this is the obsession protocol. By engaging the brain's natural desire for order, Tetris creates a mental parasite. It doesn't just entertain you, it colonizes your downtime. It turns your rest into unpaid labor for a digital sorting machine. The Soviet protocol didn't just capture your quarters in the arcade, it captured your dreams. If you want to see the Trojan horse of the Cold War, look at the export record. In the mid-1980s, the West was terrified of Soviet military technology. We were building the Star Wars missile defense system, and we were watching the sky for a threat. But while our eyes were fixed on the horizon, the Soviets sent a digital infection directly into our pockets. The legal battle for Tetris reads like a high-stakes spy thriller. It involved a government agency called ELORG, British media moguls, and Japanese corporate giants. But the end result was always the same. Tetris was bundled with every Nintendo Game Boy. It became the standard issue software for an entire generation of Western children. This was the cultural Trojan horse. It did not destroy our infrastructure, it captured our attention economy. While the Soviet Union was physically collapsing in 1991, its sorting protocol was being installed into the nervous systems of the next generation of Western leaders. We were trained to find joy in repetitive, high-speed organization, the very essence of the Soviet bureaucratic machine. Then there is the mathematics of failure, the kill screen. For decades, it was believed that Tetris was infinite, but the technical record suggests otherwise. On level 29 of the original Nintendo Entertainment System version, the gravity of the game becomes so intense that blocks fall at a rate of 1 grid space per frame. This is known as the human limitation barrier. The code moves faster than the human hand can move the controller. For 38 years, this was the labyrinth wall. But in early 2024, a 13-year-old player named Blue Scooty did the impossible. He played so efficiently that he forced the game to crash. He did not win, he deleted the world. He reached a point where the 8-bit integer storing the score could no longer represent his success. This is the integer overflow. It reveals that even the most perfect sorting machine has a breaking point. When the complexity of the task exceeds the capacity of the hardware, the only possible outcome is a system-wide collapse. It is a chillingly accurate metaphor for the collapse of the Soviet Union itself, a system that tried to organize so much data so fast that the code of society simply snapped. Finally, we must address the modern protocol. We think we left the Cold War behind. We think Tetris is just a retro memory. But look at the architecture of your 2026 digital life. Every infinite scroll on your social media feed is a vertical Tetris. Every inbox zero you chase is a line you are trying to clear. Every app you swipe is a block you are trying to fit into a grid. We are living in the universal sorting machine. The Soviet protocol did not die with the USSR. It became the blueprint for the entire digital age. We have been conditioned to see the world as a series of tasks that must be cleared to make room for more tasks. We have traded leisure for engagement metrics. We have become the researchers in Pajitnov's lab, frantically clearing lines that will never stop falling, because the system has taught us that a gap is a failure. Observe the music of the machine. The iconic theme, Korobeniki, is an old Russian folk song about a peddler and a girl haggling over the price of goods. It is a song about a transaction. In the game, the transaction is your time for their order. The music is designed to be a rhythmic anchor, a way to keep your heart rate in sync with the falling blocks. It is a form of acoustic conditioning. It turns the anxiety of the sorting loop into a dance. It makes the labor feel like a game. The silence of the Tetris world is the silence of the void. Have you ever noticed that there are no characters in Tetris? No story, no motive? There is only the grid. This is the de-individualization protocol. The game does not care who you are. It only cares about your input speed. It is the ultimate expression of a unit-based society. In the eyes of the machine, you are just a controller interface. Your only value is your ability to maintain the integrity of the grid. The next time you see those 7 geometric shapes, do not look at the score. Look at the gaps. Observe the anxiety you feel when a block is misplaced. Feel the Tetris effect pulling at your eyes, trying to make you sort the real world. Listen to the transaction playing in the background. We have been trained for 40 years to think this Soviet experiment is a hobby. We have accepted the inevitability of failure as a simple game mechanic rather than a psychological mirror. But the historical record suggests otherwise. Pajitnov did not just build a puzzle, he built a world where the sorting is the only thing that matters. You think you are the player of this world, but in the world of Tetris, you are just the latest unit to be deployed into the gray. You are managing a system that was designed to outrun you from the very first frame. The blocks will always fall faster than you can think. The lines will always be erased. And the only thing waiting for you at the end of the grid is the game over.